man. Hey, Luce. What's up? Good timing. You nailed it. Did you guys see that? Just jumped up as soon as the show started and was ready for action. Well done, Luce. Well done. Proud of you. You're doing good. All right. It looks like we're ready to go. I hope everyone is well. Hi, Karen. How are you? I hope you are having an amazing morning. And I hope everyone has a killer weekend planned. I actually don't. I have a show. I actually have a cool weekend planned. Now that I think about it, I do have a really cool weekend planned. Friday, I'm going to see the orchestra, or the LA Philharmonic, which I'm excited about that. I don't know. How long are those shows? It's been years since I've been to something like that. And I think the last time was actually in college. So anyway, I'm going to that because my fiance was able to score some free tickets. And then Saturday, I have a show. But the really cool part is it's a show right in my neighborhood, right in the Pasadena area. If you're in Pasadena, let me know. You got to go to this show. It's actually a patio show, and I'm really excited to be doing it. It's cool to have something in my backyard, but not my backyard, someone else's backyard. I get the idea. Welcome to Get Your News On With Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. I am Ron Placone, your host. This is Lucy, the co-host. Lucy says meow. I hope everyone is doing well. We got some good news out of California that could affect the rest of the country. So there was a movement, a very strong grassroots movement during our midterms for a public banking option, and it was Measure B. And Josh Androsky, one of the main activists behind that movement, he was not working alone. There were a lot of brilliant people behind it, but he was one of them. He was on this show. He did a Q&A on public banking right here on Get Your News On With Ron. There was a hell of a grassroots effort. Unfortunately, it did fall short, and it did not pass in the midterms. But a new bill was just signed into law by Gavin Newsom that paves the way for public banks. All right, this is a big deal. Let's read about this. Boom. All right, let me go up here. California cities could open their own public banks under new law meant to fund housing. So California cities could start their own public banks under a new law that Gavin Newsom signed Wednesday. That was yesterday as of the recording of this, in an effort to make it easier for projects in the public interest, like affordable housing, to access capital. The measure lays out a process for local agencies to create their own public banks that would likely take years. Now, opponents argue such ventures are risky and impractical. Isn't that what they always argue? Isn't that what this is going to be hard. This might be, hey, should we do something about climate change? I don't know. Opponents say that might be hard. That might be difficult. They gotta, our cars might not run on gasoline anymore. Doesn't that just seem crazy? Charging a car instead of pumping gross fuel into it. It seems hard. I don't know. Opponents say it's hard. Man, what is it like to be a professional opponent? What is that like? Just knowing you're on the wrong side of any type of progress all the time, everywhere. No, I don't think we can. No, I don't know. You are like the ultimate Debbie Downer of the universe. Or you're just invested in for-profit banks. That's probably more likely. In fact, in this article itself, we'll scroll down to it later. They actually say, the Banking Association is saying this is going to take money out of our pocket, so we don't like it. That's their argument against it. They're like, this hurts us. We don't like it. This hurts us. All right, but let's look more into this article. There's a lot here to unpack. So opponents argue this is risky and impractical. We can't. Doing nice things is hard. It's hard to have nice stuff, so we should just not do it. Now, supporters say public banks could provide an easier avenue than private banks to secure loans for projects in the public interest that may not be commercially attractive, such as affording housing developments or small businesses. May not be commercially attractive, but super attractive to me, and super attractive to you, and super attractive to all the people living in this country, pretty much. Well, most, anyway. The plutocracy is not a big fan of it, but you get the idea. Public's money should serve the public's purpose, not line the pockets of Wall Street investors, said the bill's author, Assemblyman David Hsu of San Francisco. This is about giving local communities the option to bank elsewhere and make our tax dollars work for our communities. Activist movements in support of public banks have cropped up in various areas of California, including San Francisco and LA. In LA, voters last year rejected a proposal that would have allowed the city to start its own bank. The new law, Assembly Bill 857, would require voter approval before an agency can apply to the Department of Business Oversight to start a public bank. And it's also limited to a maximum of 10 public banks in the state. Public banks wouldn't have to pay franchise taxes. Now, here's what it points out. This is interesting. There's only one public bank operating in the United States, and that's the Bank of North Dakota, which often partners with local banks and credit unions. Chu said he hopes any California public banks established under the new law would do the same. California's Bankers Association, this is I like this part. California Bankers Association opposed the bill, arguing public banks could actually harm local banks by taking away some of their business. Now, by local banks, they mean the local Wells Fargo branch, the local Citigroup branch, the local Bank of America branch. That's what they mean. Beth Mills, a spokeswoman for the group, also noted that public banks would need to be established with large sums of public money, as opposed to private banks, which I guess don't need any money. You go into a Wells Fargo and you hear them go, we really don't have any money. We don't have anyone. Do you think that those banks go places where they can't profit off of you? It'll take a lot of money to start a public bank, as opposed to a different type of bank. Now, the difference is that the money, instead of lining the pockets of Wells Fargo or Bank of America or whichever SunTrust, whichever bank you want to throw out there, instead of just lining their pockets so they can continue their predatory practices, which is what all banks are set up to do, the money goes back into the fees and interest and so forth, goes back into the community. So your banking dollars goes back into, public housing or an infrastructure project or municipal broadband internet. You get the idea. That's why this is incredibly important. And that's why if something like this keeps moving forward in California and we get public banks in California, other states are going to see that working. And they have it in North Dakota, which is awesome. But North Dakota, it's a more rural area. It's a much smaller area. The imprint of what's going on there has not really caught on nationally. Where a place like California, where you have Los Angeles, where you have San Francisco, that is more likely to garner national attention. They're going to say, look what California is doing with these public banks. We want to have that. And if we had public banks all over the country, it would change the anatomy of our country. It really would, because then you also know where to look. When your state tells you we can't afford this or that, you know where the money's at. You know what's going on with the public bank. They have to make that information public, hence public bank. So you can say, hey, look at all this information right here. Look at all this money right here. Look at all these funds right here. I'm a member of the bank myself. And as a citizen, this is what I want. This is what we're demanding as citizens. And, here in the Los Angeles area, there are a ton of credit unions they could partner with. Right, Lucy? Lucy's getting excited. Lucy is getting excited. She's like, oh, man, does this mean even more cat treats? This is because, they'll be funding local infrastructure with banking money. Kind of makes you want to spend more a little bit. I mean, not that there's a direct connection there, but you might want to spend more and buy me more treats. Yes, I would, Lucy. Yes. When we get a public bank, I'm going to buy you more treats. There's not really a direct connection there. I'm just going to do it because I want to. I'll feel good. I'll be like, the streets are going to get better. No more potholes in the roads. We're going to build municipal broadband internet because we have a public bank. So I'm going to go and I'm going to get you treats because of that. So this is good news. It would have been even better had Measure B passed, of course. I mean, I was very disappointed when Measure B didn't pass. The public banking bill, I was really disappointed about that. And I was really disappointed that rent control didn't pass. Those were the two biggest disappointments here in California. But the fact that California now has a lane available for public banks, is huge and hopefully will catch on nationally. Now, this is years in the works. As this article indicates from the Sacramento Bee, this is going to take years to build. They got to apply for the permit. There's only 10 per state. So, there's still a lot of work to be done, but hopefully this is the start of something bigger. And this is some good news. So, guys, we'll watch this unfold. Public banking victory here in California. Hopefully catches on nationally. So we talk about books some on this show. And I decided it's time to have a book-oriented segment. Now, I didn't want to spearhead this segment myself, the book-oriented segment. I didn't want to spearhead it myself. So I recruited another contributor. So we got a new contributor. Please welcome them with open arms. We'll be right back after this book club information. Hi, this is Nancy Pelosi, and I'm here to tell you about my new book club here on Get Your News On with John. We read a book this week. The first book we read, Das Kapital by Karl Marx. Now, my friend told me that Das stands for we are, and capital stands for capitalists. So I thought the title was We Are Capitalists, which I thought, well, that's great because I'm a capitalist and I'm also a progressive or whatever you want me to be. But upon reading the book, I don't think that was the message in this book at all. In fact, I think Karl Marx was likely from Canada. That or he's a Bernie bro. Now, this book was very long. In fact, it was too long. It was almost as long as some of those bills we don't bother reading in Congress. Don't worry. We don't not read the bills that will affect your life at all. We just read those bills that don't matter at all, like the Patriot Act. Anyway, upon reading this book, it might be nice if we had a tabula rasa or a blank slate, but I just don't think it's realistic. I bet the squad loves this book. And I designate this book definitely NSDD. Not safe for donor dinners. Tune into the next edition of the Nancy Pelosi Book Club, where we'll be reading Emma Goldman, who I believe is a crime novelist. Oh boy. Until next time, enjoy Get Your News On with John. All right, there you have it. That was Nancy Pelosi's book club. I was surprised she was down to be a contributor. I asked her. I didn't expect her to say yes. But yeah, she wanted to share her book experience. At first, I was like, "You want to have?" And then she was like, "We read Das Kapital," and I was like, "That's random." So anyway, Nancy Pelosi doing the book reviews, doing the book club. All right. Check this out. So this was shared by Tim. Thank you for sharing this, Tim. This is an update to Mr. Bernie Sanders. Here we go here. On message as always, Sanders works his heart procedure into case for Medicare for All as Get Well Bernie trends. And it seems like Bernie's doing pretty okay. That seems to be what's going on right now. He had the stint put in. Again, very common procedure. He seems to be in good spirits. Seems to be doing well. Going to have to take some time off to rest, but hopefully he'll be back on the campaign trail very soon. Message as always, Sanders works his heart procedure into case for Medicare for All as Get Well Bernie trends. So Bernie says, none of us know when a medical emergency might affect us, and no one should fear going bankrupt if it occurs. Medicare for All. Absolutely. As the outpouring of well wishes from presidential candidates, progressive activists, celebrities, lawmakers, and thousands of ordinary Americans continued Thursday morning, Senator Bernie Sanders tweeted a note of gratitude for the support following a successful heart procedure and always on message. Immediately worked the treatment into his case for Medicare for all. I'm feeling good. I'm fortunate to have good health care and great doctors and great nurses helping me to recover. And he had 2 stints put in Tuesday night. So here's his tweet. Here's the direct reading of the tweet here. Thanks for all the well wishes. Thanks for all the well wishes. I'm feeling good. I'm fortunate to have good health care and great doctors and nurses helping me to recover. None of us know when a medical emergency might affect us. And no one should fear going bankrupt if it occurs. Medicare for all. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get my Jell-O from the cafeteria. They're making me eat Jell-O for a couple days. Say, while you recover, you got to have Jell-O and applesauce. I don't really care. That's what I had to have when I was in the hospital. I don't know. I remember when I was in the hospital. So I was in the hospital. So anyway, there you go. Bernie working it into Medicare for all, having a positive message, seems to be in good spirits, seems to be feeling good. Good news. And hopefully he has a full and speedy recovery. And he's back on the campaign trail soon. But I remember when I was in the hospital, I had a really bad case of mono in high school. Right? The kissing disease. But I didn't get it from kissing. I got it from a water fountain because I'm a dude who knew how to party. But I remember I was in the hospital and a lot of Jell-O and applesauce. And I remember they were, eventually I just wanted out. And I wanted to go home so bad. And I remember they were basing letting me go off of how much I was eating. Because they were like, you need to have your energy. And I had a case so bad that my tonsils were pretty much swollen shut. That's why I had to go to the hospital. I couldn't hold down any fluids. So they had to get me to the hospital to get an IV in me because I was dehydrated. But, they, put me on medication for the swelling. I think I was on steroids and morphine and stuff. It was pretty nuts. But, I was slowly getting better. And they were measuring my success and when I got to go home based on how well I ate. And eating was still an uphill battle. It still hurt to eat. So what I did was my friends came to visit me and they had just given me my dinner. And, keep in mind, I'm in high school. So a bunch of fellow 16 and 17-year-old dudes show up there. And they're typical 16 and 7-year-old dudes. My one buddy had just come from baseball practice, whatever. So they're eyeing down this food. And I'm like, eat the fuck out of this food. And they're like, what? And I'm like, eat it. And they're like, that's your dinner. And I'm like, eat it right now. So my friends ate all my food. Then the nurse came back in and she's like, oh my God, you did wonderful, Ron. And I'm like, I know. I feel great. I feel spectacular. That food was delicious. Best chicken nuggets I ever had. I don't even remember what was there, but whatever. Best, I think it was, it was something. Who knows? Lasagna, but whatever it was. I was like, oh, it was delicious. Oh, it tasted like a home-cooked meal. They were like, do you want a milkshake or a dessert or something? I was like, I'm full now. That Jell-O really stellar. I can't get enough of it. And they were like, okay. And I got to go home that night. And then the next morning, like my parents were like, wow, they said you had a really big appetite at dinner and that's why they let you go home, but you're not eating anything. I was like, I don't. And then eventually, of course, I got my appetite back. I'd lost what was it? I think 15 pounds because I couldn't eat. I lost 15 pounds. I looked kind of gross. But then I put it all back because I started getting better right around the holidays. So I was like, hey man, eat up. You got some weight to put back on. Anyway. All right. So full and speedy recovery for Bernie. And hopefully he didn't have to pawn any of his food off to make it seem like he's doing better than he actually is. Because I'm sure he's doing awesome. And he is eating all of his own food. He doesn't need any help. He doesn't need that help. All right. A little bit more election news here. This is from Seawalk. Seawalk, thank you for sharing this. Going to go over here. And this has something else to do with California and Kamala Harris. Check this out. Kamala Harris far behind in new California presidential poll. So there's Liz Warren and Kamala Harris. What do you think they're looking at there? What do you think? Do you think that might be a truant child? And she's pointing to lock him up, and Liz Warren's like, "What's going on?" All right. Anyway, there's a virtual three-way tie in the Democratic presidential race in California. A new poll indicates, and the three candidates at the top don't include the state's junior senator Kamala Harris. Maybe that's because the people in California know her history. Maybe that's because they know that she's done nothing for the people of California other than put low-level drug offenders in jail, and she giggles about it. And then she doesn't offer any prosecution of Steve Mnuchin. Maybe it's because people in California know that. Maybe that's why. All right, so it's looking like it's Warren, Biden, and Bernie Sanders. They're bunched at the top of a survey released Wednesday by the Nonpartisan Public Policy Institute of California. Harris is well back in fourth place at 8%, and Pete Buttigieg is behind her at 6%. Among the also-rans, that's weird. I'm not sure I compare. Okay. Is San Francisco billionaire and former hedge fund manager Tom Steyer. He's at 1%. He bought his way into 1%. It's not the only way he's in the 1%. Am I right? 1% in the polls, 1% as a person. That's Tom Steyer. He's knocking it out. I'm tweeting that right now. I'm going to tweet that right now. Tom Steyer. Make sure I spelled that right. Yeah, I got it. It's Tom Steyer. %. What should it say? Tom Steyer, 1% in the polls, 1% as a person. No, 1%. New campaign slogan. All right, cool. There, you're welcome, Tom Steyer. I should have him pay me for the opportunity. Hey, I just gave him a new campaign slogan. Tom Steyer, 1% in the polls, 1% as a person. I just tweeted that. If you don't mind, show that tweet some love. Show that tweet some love. So Kamala Harris. Now, I think that Kamala at first was the anointed one. I think that Kamala was the candidate that they wanted to anoint and shove down our throats. She started her campaign strong with that dumb Casio keyboard song. She talked about nothing on the campaign trail. But I think she kind of sunk herself. She did not. I mean, she had a couple good showings in the debates, speaking strictly from a debate standpoint. I mean, everything that came out of her mouth were lies. But from a debate standpoint, she sounded nice. But then Tulsi Gabbard really handed her head, so to speak. Tulsi Gabbard really went at her, and that kind of stuck. And I think Kamala, and people realized how much baggage she had, especially in her own home state. And if you can't really make waves in your home state, you're kind of dead in the water, so to speak. I mean, when you look at the politicians that can't really even make waves in their own home state, they are a special level of corrupt. They are a special level of just universally disliked. I mean, you know who else couldn't really make much weight in their home state? Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine barely got Virginia in the 2016 general. He barely got it. And the only reason they even got it was mostly because of Gary Johnson, too. Because Gary Johnson took those votes away from Trump. Took those votes away from, you know what I mean? So, yeah. And I think the fact that Kamala is doing so poorly in her own home state. I mean, at one point, she was just behind Andrew Yang, too. Like you talked about that, where it's like it's her state. Andrew Yang's ahead of her. Pete Buttigieg is barely behind her. So I think Kamala is pretty much done. And I had thought that Kamala was the anointed one. I think at one point she was. Like, I think at one point Kamala was the anointed one they wanted. But as time went on, she just kind of sunk herself. And now I think Liz Warren has kind of moved into that anointed one spot. I think right now Liz Warren is the establishment's anointed one. That's who they want to be the nominee. Joe Biden kind of sunk himself. Kamala Harris kind of sunk herself. I think Liz Warren is the flavor of the week as of right now. Could it still change? Yeah, there's still time. But right now, I think Liz Warren is the one that they really want to put front and center. All right. So interesting thing going on there in California. So guys, we got a little bit of music news. Edwin shares this, and I also, definitely wanted to talk about this today. And this is a bummer. This is a big bummer. You guys know I'm a big punk rock guy, and the lead singer of the Muffs is no longer with us. Kim Shattuck, singer and guitarist for LA punk rockers The Muffs, has died at 56. More recently, she was also touring with the Pixies. In fact, I'm pretty sure the last time I saw the Pixies, she was there. Not the last time, because the last time I saw the Pixies was just a couple weeks ago. She was not there then. And people were wondering why she wasn't touring with them anymore, and it likely was because of these health complications. So here's what happened. The influential musician, this is according to the article here by Guitar World, the influential musician who also played with the Pixies and others succumbed to complications from LAS. Kim Shattuck, best known as the singer, guitarist, and co-founder of the long-running LA punk trio The Muffs, has died after a 2-year battle with ALS. We're very sorry to announce the passing of our bandmate and dear friend, wrote Muffs members Ronnie Barnett and Roy McDonald. Besides being a brilliant songwriter, rocking guitarist, and singer-screamer extraordinaire, Kim was a true force of nature. While battling ALS, Kim produced our last album, overseeing every part of the record from tracking to artwork. She was our best friend, and playing her songs was an honor. Goodbye, Kimba. We love you more than we could ever say. She got her start playing in an all-female LA hard rock act at the Pandoras in the 1980s. She played bass in that group, but she switched over to guitar and started the Muffs in 1991. Some of the guitarists that she references here in the article that really influenced her: Brian Setzer, John Lennon, Dave Davies from the Kinks. Interesting crop there. Dave Davies from the Kinks, John Lennon, Brian Setzer. Kind of three. They all kind of have a rockabilly style in common a little bit. I mean, John was more of a chugga guy, right? Like John was more, the kind of like slick leads and stuff. That was more George, or sometimes even Paul. John was the more like chugga rhythmic, very chord virtuoso guitarist. Dave Davies, I think, is very similar in that regard. And then Brian Setzer, of course, is kind of just a very flashy player. Brian Setzer's a very top-notch guitar player. His music isn't really my cup of tea personally. I kind of, even the Stray Cats I thought was a little cheesy, and his solo stuff didn't really do much for me either. As far as like, I prefer the more kind of grit rockabilly like the Blasters or something like that. But, I certainly appreciate the musicianship. So that's an interesting crop that she names there. But Kim Shattuck, my first exposure to the Muffs was I heard their cover of Kids in America, which is killer. It's so good. And I heard that when I was like 10. And, I think that type of power pop punk rock is something that you can really connect with when you're really young, because there's a certain youthful joy to it. And I still appreciate all that music to this day. I still love all that music to this day. But the Muffs were one of the earlier things I heard that were, I think, kind of approachable enough for somebody who had never heard punk rock before. Like I had never really heard punk rock, and stuff like The Clash and the Muffs and Rancid, sort of like a good way to ease into it, because it has more of the kind of basic rock and roll elements that I was used to hearing at that point in my life. But it still kind of gave me this kind of youthful, fast driving, rhythmic joy that I hadn't really experienced that side of it yet. So I remember all that, and eventually, that kind of expanded into more 77 punk rock, and then 80s hardcore, and then the list goes on and on and on of stuff that I was able to get into after that. But the Muffs were very much pioneers in that. They were very influential, and I'm not as hip to their catalog as I should be. The song that Edwin recommends, Sad Tomorrow, that's Edwin recommends Sad Tomorrow. So that's going to be our song of the day and our artist of the day. Our artist of the day is, of course, the Muffs. Kim Shattuck, rest in power. And just check out the Muffs in general. But the track that Edwin recommends, Sad Tomorrow. So check out that track, Sad Tomorrow. Kim Shattuck, rest in power. All right. Let me see what you guys are saying to end the show today. And to end the show for the week. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? All right. By the way, shout out to our sponsors, ET.com, ZHITEA.com. Their tea kind of rules. And hey, take Nancy Pelosi's advice. Check out Das Kapital. You never thought, that kind of came out of nowhere, man. Who thought she'd be recommending that book? But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Kabuto, thank you very much for your Super Chat contribution. Hey, Ron, are you aware of Aspiration Bank? I'm not aware of that. I honestly do not know what that is. Here, I'll Google it real quick because I am not familiar with that. Aspiration Bank. Okay. It's a place in Marina del Rey. All right. So this is I don't know if this is a national bank or do well, do good. The aspiration spending. Okay. So it looks like this is, I guess this is a credit union of some sorts. Here's one thing that they say here on their website. Your aspiration deposits don't go towards Capitol Hill lobbying or oil pipelines and drilling that harms our planet. Instead, we commit to giving 10% of our earnings to charities helping struggling Americans build a better life. Well, that sounds really good. That definitely sounds really good. But I'm not familiar with this institution. I'd have to do a little more digging into it. But thank you for sharing that with me. Here in LA, there's actually there's a couple credit unions that are dedicated, and they are credit unions. They're not big banks, and they're dedicated to helping out performers, or not necessarily helping out performers, but they're meant for performers. If you're a musician or an actor or a comedian or whatever, if you're in the film industry in some way, it's a credit union that's meant for you. There's a bunch of those in Los Angeles. So that's where I do my banking. But yeah, thank you for bringing that to my attention, Kabuto. I very much appreciate it. And Tom recommends Tiger Army. I've listened to Tiger Army. It's been years, but I'm going to write that down because I need to revisit it. Tom recommends Tiger Army. I will look into that, and we'll try to get a song of the day out for them. Absolutely. X Shyster, man, I miss your articles on disinfo, sir. I appreciate that. And that's a blast from the past. Thank you, Shyster. I appreciate that very much. I love disinfo. I got a lot of love for that institution. I think they put out some interesting stuff. I just kind of started doing more content that wasn't really conducive to the type of stuff they try to do. And I haven't really been writing articles as of recent. But yeah, they do have a really cool platform, and I'll have to look into that. That'd be cool to start doing some stuff with them again. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you very much. The site kind of went south, says Shyster. Okay, I've not been to the site in a long time. In fact, the last time I went to the site was when I was contributing. So I don't know what they're like current day, but my relationship was good. And I definitely at one point really liked the stuff they were putting out, but I don't know what they're up to now. So I can't speak to that. But yeah, I'll have to check it out later today. But yeah, I've not been to the site. It's probably been a couple of years since I've been to the site. So I'll have to check that out later. Guys, tour dates, I got them. Australia, don't wait, get your tickets now. ronplacone.com. We're coming to Australia in November. That's Graham Elwood and myself. Perth, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide. Get your tickets at ronplacone.com. Have I ever listened to Gogol Bordello? Yes, I have. I'm going to write that down too. You guys are bringing a bunch of things I need to revisit to my attention, which I really appreciate that very much. Also, Southern California, we're going to be previewing our 2020 tour right in our own backyard of Southern California. Graham Elwood and myself. December 13th, we're going to be at Ventura Harbor Comedy Club. December 14th, we're going to be at the Dojo of Comedy, Sycamore Tavern, right here in Los Angeles. Tickets for all those shows are available now. In 2020, we already got some tickets available. Tucson, February 8th, tickets are available now. San Francisco, February 29th. Orlando, Florida, March 12th. April 24th, Seattle, Washington. April 25th, Portland, Oregon. And April 10th, I will be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. All those tickets are available now. More shows are being confirmed. Those aren't the only cities we're coming to. We're going to be coming to other cities in Florida. We're going to be coming to other cities in California. We're going to be coming to other cities in the Midwest. Those are just the shows that have been confirmed right now that are already confirmed, and tickets are available. Please check that out, ronplacone.com. If you want to support this show on the sustainability end, please do consider becoming a patron. Patreon.com/ronplacone for a give what you can level. You get an exclusive stream once a week. You get dialogues between myself and my cat Lucy before they become drawn-out comics. You get stand-up clips not available anywhere else. You get my album in its entirety. You occasionally get free tickets to shows. Some restrictions apply there, but when I got free passes to shows, I give them to you guys, and that's all for a give what you can level, and you help me expand this show, do more streams, have more guests, do more segments. You get the idea. We got a book club now, guys. Nancy Pelosi is doing a book club. Can you believe it? Right? It's exciting stuff. In the meantime, you guys know the drill. Lucy says meow. I say peace. Have a great weekend. We'll be back Monday. We don't do a show Friday, so we'll be back Monday, but the podcast does drop on Friday. So check that out. Have a wonderful weekend. I hope you're all doing something cool. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy says meow. I say peace. Peace.